Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the No Bullshit Property podcast, brought to you by CERT Property. I'm Howard.
And I'm Paul.
And as it's Manchester's Pride this month, we are looking to talk about the topic of equality, inclusivity and diversity. Manchester Pride, obviously a big landmark celebration in the social calendar in Manchester, celebrating everything LGBTQ, and that's why we're talking about equality, inclusivity and diversity today. And our guest today is one of our own employees, our very own Johnny V, who's also the curator of the New Normal exhibition, which has been also running during the month of August. And Paul, do you want to give Johnny a bit of a further introduction to that?
I will. Johnny joined us back in 2020 as community coordinator at Hilton House, back when we first opened our doors after redeveloping the site. Johnny is quite the character in the office, so from roller skating into work to attending every social event in the Manchester calendar.
And having a different coloured beret to match every outfit.
Yeah. Regardless of what day it is, what time it is, Johnny will be at that event, but he will also be first one in the office the next morning. So I admire his stamina. I mean, Johnny, over to you. Tell us a bit about your story and how you have come to be in Manchester.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I originally came from the Philippines. I moved to England in 2011. So 2011, I came to England to study a short course in London, and I met my ex who's from Manchester. And to begin with, Manchester wasn't what I expected it to be. It was a bit scary at first, but then as I kept going up here, I just fell in love with the place until I moved in here, and I just found a home, basically, regardless how I was so scared to speak to everybody because of the accent. I think Manchester just gave me a home and everyone that I can connect to, that kind of that feeling of belonging that I never felt before, even when I was back home. Yeah, so I think the rest was history, and I just kept discovering parts of myself as I go on with this journey, and I kept wanting more.
Well, we're going to be talking to you a little bit more shortly, Johnny, but first of all, and before we get into that, let's start with a quick roundup of what's been happening in the property industry since our last episode. So, Howard?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to end up sounding like a broken record on these things, aren't we? We're going to be talking about like positivity and growth and demand, but that's because it's true. I mean, we're continuing to see a lot of rental demand and also demand from buyers, and that's reflected in the latest reports that you see out there. Savills recently produced a report predicting that property prices in the Northwest region will grow by 18.8% by 2026. Similar predictions from JLL, another big consultancy, and yeah, I mean, we're seeing the same thing on the ground, really, aren't we, Paul?
Absolutely. The supply out there, especially in Manchester, is really low. I mean, we put a property on the market and within 2 hours the phone is ringing off the hook and you've got 15 to 20 people looking to view that property, and unfortunately a lot of those will be disappointed. We've never quite seen traction like this. You know, there's simply not enough properties there for the amount of people that are coming to Manchester, and I think as much as people who aren't moving out of the city after university and such, we have such a massive influx from other cities, predominantly London as well, where people are used to paying higher rents. So yeah, it's quite unprecedented, the demand that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think my estimation is we'll continue to see it. I mean, we're obviously talking about these, projections of price increases and rent increases because of the demand against the backdrop of a inflationary environment. Everyone knows about that, I'm sure. Inflation at, highest rates it's been for 10, 15 years, and also interest rate rises, and it seems a bit nonsensical that we're seeing this, but actually when you look at those factors, it's probably meaning that people are finding it more unaffordable to take that next step and purchase a property. So it's actually keeping more people in the rental market. than what we would see if interest rates had remained lower. So I think that's a contributing factor. And it's a contributing factor as well to why we're seeing a lot of demand from institutional investors and pension funds and private equity funds to invest into residential property. I mean, we've seen such a growth in demand from those types of investors, professional and institutional investors, because they see this asset class as one that protects them from changes in the economy. You know, there's uncertainty as to how businesses are using office space going forwards with, you know, remote working, hybrid working. So institutional funds previously would have invested in that. Previously would have invested in retail, and with the, you know, the online shopping revolution, they're more wary of investing into that. So I think, you know, that's something else we're seeing is this huge wave of demand to buy whole blocks of apartments across the city. And it's actually something that I think deserves its own podcast episode, really, for us to talk about that, because it does feel like that demand is also being matched with legislative changes that are making it more difficult in some instances for individual landlords. Perhaps something else for its own podcast episode is, you know, changes to EPC legislation, whereby by 2025 you're going to have an EPC grade C before you can rent a property. There's the talked about rental market reforms and the removal of the no fault evictions. So there's things that are also guiding that the whole sector towards that type of institutional demand. But I digress anyway, because our topic today isn't about rental market reform, and it isn't about build-to-rent investment and the levels of investment we're seeing in the city, but just as an overall comment on what we've seen, lots of demand from individual investors, from owner-occupiers as well, and that rental demand. So, yeah, more of the same, and long may it continue. But anyway, back to our topic for the day, and back to our guest, Mr. Johnny V. So, Johnny, I think you're really well placed to talk about equality and inclusivity and diversity, given that you're part of the LGBTQ community, and not only a part of it, but you're, you know, actively participating in creating that awareness and driving inclusivity with things like the New Normal exhibition, which you've curated and have made happen this month. So do you want to talk to us about New Normal and the purpose of it, and how that is driving inclusivity and understanding?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, when I moved to Manchester, it was a journey, and it wasn't like it hasn't always been like this since I moved in here. And I think when I started working for CERT, I think my workplace just gave me this platform, and without any reservations or, you know, not stopping me to be expressive who I truly am. So, and I feel really blessed for getting this opportunity, I think, because it just made me realize my full potential, to be surrounded. I mean, to be encouraged by the people in your life personally is great, but to have more people to do that in a working environment, that just adds up. It just enhances your motivation and embrace what you can actually give out to the world. So with that opportunity, and I thought to organize something like this is my way to give back to the city, to the community that made me feel like I truly belong finally. And you guys asked me last year as a community coordinator for New Normal what to do for the second floor when it was still vacant. And I didn't want to do something that is not meaningful, and that's something that's not going to make any impact to us or to everybody around us or the community that we're trying to build here. But why not do something that is close to my heart? So approach LGBTQIA plus artists that are not really represented in the public. Those people who never had any exhibitions before, give them more visibility. Same visibility that was given to me by CERT and everyone else that followed after that. So I thought it's something that's like, if I could actually have this kind of visibility and opportunity, then maybe I can give that to people who actually needs it, and also raise money for charities who also desperately need some help. So it's basically just giving back and, and build a more inclusive and more accepting environment for us all.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, we're really proud of at CERT, is, like you say, giving platforms to people to be who they want to be and express themselves. And I'm actually going to direct it at Paul as well. We're doing that within the team to create a community here, but also within the buildings that we're delivering. And we talked previously about these desires to create community, but it's got to start within the business, hasn't it? And you've experienced it as well as someone joining this business and actually played a part in creating that inclusive environment. What are your thoughts on that, and the importance of creating it within the business and the benefits everyone gets from it?
Yeah, I think it's coming from a background where I've worked myself in property for 15 years plus, but it's always been a very middle-aged, male-dominated profession. People in senior positions in companies I've worked for in the past were always male, and we didn't have a representation around the table ever, really. And it could be quite an intimidating environment, and it could also be a place where you didn't see where your progression was, because it wasn't a real clear path, and whether actually you could follow that path to a senior level. I think when I joined CERT and you gave me a platform and a senior position and a voice, really, and I always kind of think of it as a bit of a voice to play with the big boys, because I was given that accountability and ownership to be able to negotiate deals and deal with senior people in different other third parties and different companies, and really, why should you not be? Why should you be any different from those people?
And do you think, and I'm asking you this pointedly because I've got an opinion on this, do you think, and I'll ask you both actually, do you think that because you're gay, that other people in senior positions that we interact with have treated you differently, do treat you differently still?
I think it's almost a subconscious bias in some ways, but I think it only became a lot clearer to me once I was in those positions that did actually take place. I think when I was younger, I was almost a little bit oblivious to that. But, if I think about instances at the very start of this journey, when I would be speaking to people in senior positions, they'd almost kind of go over my head to speak to somebody more senior. So, whether that was an intentional thing or whether it was a kind of you speak to the gaffer type thing. But I think as things have progressed, I'm given that accountability now to deal with that myself, and I'm absolutely capable of doing that, and I've shown that I'm absolutely capable of doing that. So I think it's about being able to earn that respect. So yeah, I think in other businesses, we've now got to a place where people respect you, but I don't think it's that easy to get into that automatically. I do think we have to work harder to prove ourselves, I really do. And I do think that we have to be given that platform, because it's not something that will come to us automatically.
Yeah, I think it came from a long years of history. I mean, a lot of industries are male dominated, so especially when you go to property industries, that same thing. It's same in politics, So I think, you can say that most of the times all the older men who you will have bad experience with, because they would have a gender bias. They will always see cis male that needs to be more respectable, rather than someone who are not cisgender, or not cisgender, I'll say straight, because that's how they used to. And I think that it's something that can't blame them, because that's how they're conditioned to, because of their generation. And like what you said, it's up to us to take that leap and, take a stand with respect, obviously, and how to make yourself heard without compromising your identity and your entirety as a person, as an LGBTQIA plus.
I think for me, it's, when you talked about how since coming here, we have got a diverse workplace. It's not just about people who are gay, straight, bisexual, whatever they are. I think in property especially, it was one type of person round that table, and it's just about having different types of people who bring different qualities. When I recruit people, I'm not interested in how they represent themselves. I'm interested in what qualities they bring to the business. And actually looking at bigger businesses and a lot of the older big property companies, you do wonder how they will survive in the future, because they don't have a representation of people bringing different things to the property industry in a ever evolving industry, which in the cities especially, and you talked a bit there about city centres not being about retail anymore and such. It is about creating communities, and the needs of what we need from our properties is changing. So you do need that representation, and that's not just gay people. Like I say, it's about people who bring something and bring value.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah. I mean, your answer's really interesting, and from my perspective, I've been from day one willing to give people a platform, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their sexual orientation, whatever. And when you first joined the business, Paul, and for quite a sustained time, and as you say, you came in a senior role, I did see there being a particular bias with how some people dealt with you. And, people in senior positions who are perhaps a lot more used to dealing with the straight older male that typically dominates the senior positions in the property industry. But what you also said, I think, is very true as well, is you've then proved your capabilities, and those barriers, but the sort of slight perception shift has been noticeable, and you get the respect you deserve now, I see, in general terms, which is great, because it shows that actually giving people from different backgrounds and, like I say, different genders and sexual orientation the platform to challenge the norm, it's good to actually then sit back and witness, well, actually, someone who may have had a particular bias is willing to shift their perceptions. But also, I think you're absolutely right as well about, how are we going to deliver communities if we are not inclusive and having representations from a lot of different voices within the business ourselves to deliver those communities. It's not a case of bringing in people from different backgrounds to tick a box. It's a case of bringing them in because they contribute with their skills and talents, but also contribute with the different voices they have to help build the communities that are inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that really embodies one of our values of being inclusive, because motivation drives us as a business, and it's not because of skin color, body shapes, racial backgrounds. It's what you can bring on the table, regardless of whatever deterrent other people think you may have. So it's what you can contribute to make a difference, and I think we have that as a business, So I think that makes us different from our competitors, I think.
Yep.
Because when you walk in here, you wouldn't even think that we all work in a property industry. But we all work hard, and what we wear, who we are, what we do on the weekends, does it reflect how we perform professionally during the weekdays.
Yep.
Because we deliver regardless of all of those things that people may judge us externally.
Yeah. So Johnny, what do you think we need to do as developers to create inclusive communities and buildings? You know, we've talked in previous episodes about the building being the space, and we want to layer a community on top of it, but it wants to be an inclusive community. So what do we need to do that?
And I think to build an inclusive community is we need to start within us. So we need to be inclusive ourselves. And we have inclusive members and diverse members who decide what we're going to make. And at the same time, we need to listen to the community.
Yeah.
Understand what they want, understand what they need, and then we can provide what everybody needs, not just a single audience. We need to be able to provide for everybody. And if we're going to be inclusive in our workplace, then we need to give that same principle in everything that we do, small or little, the way we talk to people, the way we build properties, the way we write emails. It needs to reflect that.
Completely agree. I mean, we were talking about engaging with communities in areas before we even start the planning process on a project, to ensure what we're delivering fits in with what a community in a certain geographical location wants and expects from what we're going to deliver there. So you're absolutely right that it's about engagement and listening to diverse voices externally that form the community and internally to shape what we're delivering. Yeah. Paul, any other thoughts on what we should be doing?
Like you, I completely agree. I think we need that accurate representation around the table. I was just actually thinking then as well, with that comes so much more creativity and so many more ideas. And, just in the projects we've done over the last couple of years, when I think back of working for big corporate property companies, you'd be so restricted in even having those thoughts, let alone being able to pursue them. And why it's such a joy to work here is everybody really, really is given the accountability and ownership to be able to go out and do something, however wacky it is, however out there it is, and more so that it's encouraged. And I actually think it's quite sad that other places miss out on that, and I think it's up to us. You talked a little bit about facing bias, and that bias, and I know from my personal experience, that bias is from fear. It's about people not knowing how to talk to you and how to communicate with you and how to deal with you. And I think we've actually done a really good job of educating our peers on that through what we've done and how we've worked. And I think as members of that community, it's really important for us to speak up and be confident and be out there in the community and doing things. And Johnny's a prime example of that, as our guests in the last episode, the Feel Good Club. Just amazing success just for speaking up. And if I think back to 10 years ago, that just wouldn't have happened. So it's a real joy to see, and we need more of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're all about, and probably anyone who's listened to multiple episodes of this podcast will pick up that common thread. We are trying to create inclusive and forward-thinking communities, and like we've said a few times now, it's about starting at home and giving people a platform and a voice to do that. And, talking about giving people a platform and the voice to do that, obviously the New Normal exhibition is a prime example of that. So that's running through the course of August. So, Johnny, do you want to just talk about what the New Normal is? And, as you said before, raising money for charity. Who are you raising money for?
So, raising money for charity is secondary goal of the event. So, this year, I brought New Normal to 10 different venues. Because in the last 10 years, I noticed that Northern Quarter I used to love it when I first moved in here. It's like such alternative space, but gradually it didn't feel kind of safe for the people in my community, like trans people or non-binary people. Sometimes I don't feel comfortable going in a bar on my own, which I used to love to have my own, to take myself on a date, basically.
In the Northern Quarter?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
But like it doesn't seem inclusive with the people that it attracts it. So I thought, why not promote inclusivity, diversity, and LGBTQIA plus in the neighborhood through arts? And I think arts bring people together, and I curated every venue so that people will understand my queer culture, understand why gay people have, or any queer people struggles with their relationship with their bodies, and how we also struggle with our own mental health, and why do we need our own safe space, and why do we need to have queer club nights when all we want is to walk in a normal pub or a normal bar or on the street and feel safe. So those kind of things, I curated them in different venues so that people will understand our struggles to be free, as same as everybody on the street. So
that's the purpose, is to, I guess, regain the inclusivity of the community that you feel that has drifted a bit, and that's surprising for me to hear, but perhaps because I'm not aware of it day to day. That for me, I look at the Northern Quarter and see it as being like a very inclusive place, and it's interesting to hear that you're going into places and don't feel like that. So that for me helps me change a perception, which helps us inform what we're doing. For me, the Northern Quarter would be a kind of a template for what a creative and inclusive community would look like. So really interesting to hear that.
I don't know if you agree, Johnny. I think, and we did actually talk a little bit about this on the last episode, but I think it's the difference between doing something in an authentic way against a tick box way. And I think when I listen to that, Johnny, and what you've created, it's almost like getting back to the roots and having that representation in there, because there is a perception that everywhere's inclusive, but it's almost, again, a bit of a buzzword, but it's about doing it in an authentic way, which I think by inviting those artists in and actually displaying it in a visual way and doing visual events, then it's really becoming almost a safe space.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want my people to feel safe and just, I want...
And feel part of the community.
Yeah, I want them to feel belong the way I felt. So, and people just feel genuinely happy and,
Yeah, it's a noble cause, and we're really proud of you for what you've done with the new normal, and alongside that, as you said, raising money for charity for it as well. So that's a fantastic venture, and well done with what you've done with it.
And you know what? Thank you so much for supporting me with everything since it started. Anyway, I mean, this wouldn't have happened anyway without all your support you've given me since the first time. Oh, don't make me cry. But yeah.
So what's next on your list for the coming year, Johnny? What else would you like to do?
I want to keep my future open. I don't want to set myself on a certain goal, but I always want to see my goals going up and make a difference. I don't want it to be one-dimensional or anything like that. I would always want to do something that makes a difference. I don't mind the hard work. I don't mind not getting anything from it, as long as it could give everything to everybody.
Continuing to build inclusive communities
exactly.
is the answer.
and finally, Manchester Pride plans? Is it a full 4 days dancing? Or?
Well, I'm actually going to London on Thursday evening after work, because I'm going to All Points East on Friday to see one of my favourite band, The National.
Nice. Well, if I think this is going out just in time for you to go and follow Johnny there and meet him if you want to. So, for anyone who's interested. But I think for today and this month's topic, it's really clear for me, the goals that we have in making communities inclusive, and as we've said, that's got to start at home, hasn't it, to do that. So, thank you for your input today, Johnny. Thank you for your time. We were told to not laugh as much on this one, weren't we? And we've achieved that. It's been a serious topic, but hopefully we haven't caused too many audio issues with our excessive laughter this time round, because we did last time. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for tuning in to this month's episode of the No Bullshit Property Podcast. If you like the episode, let us know on Instagram at CERT_property. And let us know what you would like to see more of on this podcast, any topics you want us to talk about. And you can also keep up to date with the latest UK property news, downloadable industry guides, and much more to help you learn more about property, whether you're interested in investing or whatever your interests are, on certproperty.co.uk. Until next time, thank you guys.
Thank you for having me.